Hello, everyone. Good Sunday morning to you. I hope everyone is well. We are back once again into the wonderful world of Hive diversity. A couple of new articles have been posted about the app, and I thought I would delve into it to see if we can finally discover exactly how they do what they purport to do. Hope everyone's doing well. I know it's a little early, but that's usually how I do these things on Sundays, to wake up, stretch the old brain muscle a little bit, and see what's going on in the world. Hello to those of you who have joined me this morning. Thomas Cleaver, Funtime Bats, Matt Barnes, Dr. Keeve, Arc210, It's a Llama, Zalbla. Hello, everyone. So for those of you that might be tuning into this for the first time, I'll give a brief rundown. Hive Diversity is a weird little app that I came across. I've never used it, but I found out it existed, that purports to help companies diversify their workforces. And throughout, 3 previous streams to this one, I have asked the, I think, most salient question: how do they do that? How do they do that? And thus far, I haven't found an answer. However, last time I came up with a theory, and I will reiterate it here briefly. As we all know, it is illegal by federal law to discriminate your hiring or promotion practices on the basis of race or gender or orientation and so on. A company cannot do that. A company cannot explicitly say, I'm hiring this person because of their, attribute that has nothing to do with merit. They can't do that. That's not to say companies don't do that, but they can't make that the deciding factor in any way, shape, or form that could be proven in court. And so, what do you do when you're doing your best to try to look diverse? Well, here's my theory about what Hive Diversity might be doing for companies. If a company essentially abdicates their first stage filtering step in the hiring process to a third party who is recommending to them people to look at to hire, then perhaps, and again, I'm not a lawyer, I don't know, and I don't know if this is what's happening, but I'm at a loss to guess as to what this app actually does. Perhaps Hive Diversity as a third party can act as a firewall legally for companies, in that companies accept their recommendations, but Hive Diversity is themselves doing the filtering through algorithms or other check marks. That's my best theory so far, in the absence of a better explanation. So, with that being said, I have 2 more articles to read regarding Hive Diversity. And we'll see if it's just a recitation of what we've already been told, or if there's something new here. I don't know. Let's find out. This one's from Campaign. Never heard of them before, but digital agency Makeable creates DE&I recruiting platform. Makeable. I don't remember Makeable in this whole thing. Hive Diversity uses design and technology to optimize student resumes and profiles. Oh, well, that's a different description, because I thought Hive Diversity was to help companies diversify their workforces. Gen Z is the creative generation. As such, employers must get creative in how they reach out to young talent. Yes, creative in how to reach out to young talent by not having a Twitter account or a Facebook account. Yeah, this is something that still puzzles me to no end. Hive Diversity does not have a Twitter account, does not have a Facebook account, does not have a YouTube channel. You look up Hive Diversity on YouTube, I'm pretty sure, save for a couple of like a Yahoo News thing, my videos come up first, which is kind of funny. As the digital native generation faces an uncertain job market, they're increasingly shying away from traditional resumes and applications. Are they? That's why Hive Diversity founder and CEO Byron Slozar collaborated with his brothers Michael and Sam Cantrow of digital agency Makeable to create a new type of digital recruitment platform for students centered around diversity, equity, and inclusion. I'm struggling to remember if Makeable and those other two individuals were ever mentioned before this. Okay. The platform, launched last year, uses emotional intelligence technology and automation to help underrepresented college students create resumes and edit them to fit a company's application requirements. Emotional intelligence technology. Okay. Students can sign up with their school email address to receive a series of tips and tools for creating a strong resume. From there, they can fill out prompts to create a profile that resembles a social media profile more than a traditional resume. Yes, because if I'm a serious employer, what I'm looking for is a resume that looks like something from MySpace. Prompts extend beyond previous work experience to focus on students' strengths and interests. Okay. Students are encouraged to share hobbies, related links and portfolios, and even describe themselves using emojis, and can hide specific prompts or make them visible to employers based on the job description. You think anybody going through resumes really wants to go through your hyperlinks and all? I mean, I guess it depends on the job, but okay. The goal is to gamify the job search while highlighting candidates' differences rather than minimizing them, Slosar said. Differences between what? Differences comparable to what? I mean, if somebody's looking at multiple resumes, you'll see the differences in the applicants. Highlighting their differences. You mean highlighting their personal attributes or interests? Candidates and differences. Minimizing their difference. I don't understand that. What do you mean by highlighting differences or minimizing differences? Okay, I'm thinking of the traditional job resume. I've done a few. Okay, the advice my father gave me, who was in various levels of business and things over his lifetime, is that you want to keep your resume, unless it's necessary otherwise, to one page. You want to start out with your most recent experience and don't go back any further than perhaps your last 3 jobs or 10 years, whichever comes first. You start out with your education, your experience. Well, I mean, you title it with your name and your address and your contact information, then your education, then your experience. And then underneath those experience things, you put down what did you learn or what skills did you attain during your job, and or what accomplishments do you want to highlight. And then you put down any other leadership or work experience you have that might not be professional in nature, like volunteer work or community service or something like that. And then at the bottom, you either put your references if you have a few, or if you want to save space, you say references available upon request, beyond, the contact information for your previous employers that you would put in the work experience section. I'll try to keep it to a page, very tight, very neat, very tidy. If they have any more questions, well, they find that out either through the interview process or they can call you up for your references elsewise. And be sure to actually have references available if they call. Oftentimes they won't, but sometimes they will. That's what it is, because, an employer is looking for, first and foremost, can they, the resume process is they look and see, do you have the relevant experience? Does it look like you have the things necessary? Then they go through the personal interview process to make sure you're not a freakazoid, and then maybe you get the job. I don't know what the process is these days if you're looking through what's effectively amounts to a Facebook profile as a resume. Emojis, my hobbies, related links. I mean, sounds like a whole lot of extra work rather than just handing somebody a single page of paper with all the relevant information. But maybe I'm just old-fashioned. I probably am. Moving on, quote, Hive uniquely enables students to demonstrate interest in companies, Slosar said. Uniquely enables students to demonstrate interest in companies. Well, here's how you demonstrate your interest in a company. You do research on the company before you get into your first interview. If you can walk into your interview and know something about the company and be able to cite something, like when they ask you, why do you want to work for this company? And you can start talking about their history, their marketability, their product line, this, that, or the other. I tell you what, you'll blow the socks off of most employer recruiters, because most times people just walk in without any knowledge of what it is that they're actually looking for, or what company they're going to end up working for. Like I say, I don't understand this. Thank you, Chicago Mike. So do we need to create a web page instead? Yeah, okay. I mean, is Hive diversity just some kind of like glorified angel fire, basically? Make your own profile? If it's just a social networking site, how is that? I still don't know how this thing works. Quote, we're not in the business of defining anything for them other than opening a door for them to define themselves via your weird parameters for what you equate to a neo job application. Employers can create profiles on Hive as well to advertise job opportunities, which students can directly apply to, which is nothing new. Companies including Wells Fargo and Saks Fifth Avenue are using the platform. The inspiration for Hive came 5 years ago, but launched during COVID as students were engaging with school remotely and off campus. It launched in November of last year before COVID really started. So, no. But anyway, let's see. Or it was either mid-October or early November when Hive Diversity launched. So you got that one wrong. Quote, let's remove the requisite component of needing to have a campus resource for an equitable reason, unquote, Slosar said. With no period then. Quote, COVID destroyed campus, but companies are still looking to get to know students, unquote. Let's remove the requisite component of needing to have a campus resource for an equitable reason. Okay, the platform aims to open up a more diverse talent pool by opening up career services support beyond college campuses. Plenty of apps and websites have been doing that for years. More than 90% of talent on Hive self-identify within at least one minority category across race, ethnicity, gender, and sexual orientation. 90%. Okay. There are also many first-generation college students. Quote, in a healthy world, there will always be an ever-evolving range of needs and priorities and representation that is diversity, equity, and inclusion in the workforce, Slosar said. Hive is part of a growing effort on behalf of employers to connect with future employees in environments where they already live. Social media? Okay. PR agency Day One, for example, recently used TikTok to recruit youth staffers, and creative agency Arnold brought on a junior copywriter who sent the CEO a Venmo request for his desired starting salary. Sorry, the CCO. Okay, quote, Gen Z wants a product that feels like other services they are familiar with, said Sam Cantrow, partner and innovator at Makeable. It feels intuitive in a space that could be daunting and scary for them without tools like this, unquote. Okay, so again, doesn't tell us how they do what they do. It is a quasi job search app, social media networking app, where you can make a goofy MySpace profile that's supposed to serve as a resume to try to attract specific types of people. Now, again, how does this app meet the goals of their clients? If their clients are signing on to Hive Diversity to diversify their workforces, how is the app providing that outcome? Again, the only theory that makes any sense to me is that they are using their app to filter out the candidates on the basis of the demographics that the company needs to fill out their demographical checklists, and are doing an end run around the law and not making the companies responsible for making those initial hiring choice decisions, but allowing the app to do it for them. And there's, like I say, there's that firewall. I don't know what the legality of that would be. Let's take Hive diversity out of it completely. Let's just say hypothetical company X as a referral company is using their discretion to filter who they will recommend to another company based on race or gender or orientation or whatever. And then the company who is employing the services of this, hiring agency then just takes on whoever they recommend without question or without too many questions. Does that create a legal insulation against civil rights law? I don't know. If there's somebody out there who's more of a better lawyer than I am, I'd be curious to know the answer to that. Even in the hypothetical, like I say, this is not an accusation. I want to make that clear. I don't know what Hive diversity does. They've never said. How they achieve the outcomes they advertise to achieve, I don't know. So in the absence, I can only speculate. Thank you, the gay rascal. Bring your whole self-identified self to work. Yes, bringing your whole self to work is very important. Very important to forming a community, a family at a company. Anyway, okay, going from a publication that I'm not that familiar with to one with far more credibility, let's take a look at Forbes. And without the advertisement video, go away. Okay. Nope, stop. All right. On to something more upscale, let's say. Forbes. And this is from March 18th. The previous article was from the 1st of March. So this one is very recent, just within the last few days. Let's see. Hiring for the Future, a playbook for building a diverse, inclusive, and equitable workforce. Okay. Before we entered into lockdown last year from COVID-19, we were in the middle of a talent war. Skilled employees in many business sectors had their pick of where they wanted to work. But everything changed. Many industries were either directly or indirectly negatively impacted by 2020. I'm at a loss to think of an industry that wasn't impacted by it, but okay. Many employees found themselves suddenly laid off or furloughed. As vaccines roll out and the world slowly gets back to operating and engaging, I hate these freaking ads. Operating and engaging, the employment market is shifting toward getting back to work. However, it would be a mistake to assume that hiring is back to the status quo. With the wave of social injustices that were pulled into the spotlight last year, the merging of people's personal lives with the workplace, and the adoption of virtual work, how we hire and what we hire for has to evolve. The merging of people's personal lives with the workplace is actually part and parcel with the plan. Bringing your whole self to work, that kind of thing, that is an intentional strategy for companies. If companies can make themselves the social network of their employees, then they have very ingrained and attached employees who will be working for the company even when they're not at work. It's sort of like having a virtual Hershey town. Hershey town, where you have the town built up by the company around it for its employees. If you can create a virtual town for your company, your employees are never off the clock, and you're not always paying them for their work. Thank you, Chicago Mike. Quote, I am a Gen X heterosexual male. Am I diverse enough for your company? Probably not. These days, probably not. Thank you. This is Kyle. Hello, chat people and scribbles. Hello, Kyle. All right. Below are some key considerations every recruiter, leader, and hiring manager should consider as they look to build their workforce. Okay, when do we get to the Hive diversity part? Because Hive diversity highlighted this article as one of their buzz things. Okay, number one, consider the legal implications for not removing bias from the hiring process. I'm going to read that one again. Consider the legal implications for not removing bias from the hiring process. Okay. Facebook recently found themselves in hot water over their emphasis on culture fit. What used to be a common way to describe someone's likelihood to mesh well with the culture of an organization is proving to be problematic and riddled with bias and prejudice. And how are you going to achieve the diversity quotas in most companies without employing bias and prejudice again? I don't know. Nadini Sane, or Sane, depending on how you pronounce it, I don't know, attorney at Cozen O'Connor, cautions that, quote, hiring managers interested in supporting diversity efforts should educate themselves on unconscious bias and establish a hiring process that is mindful of removing bias from the hiring decision, unquote. Some recommendations she shared include considering using blind resumes, which removes a candidate's personal information. But if you remove the personal information, how will you see their funny emojis? And allows reviewers to evaluate a candidate without any knowledge of factors such as the candidate's gender, race, or religion. Okay, aside from, whatever guesses you might make based on someone's name, where on a usual resume do you list your race or religion? I suppose if you have in some of your sections on community service or something, if you have religious organizations listed or things like that, I guess that might be a giveaway, but otherwise it's not part and parcel with most things. Employers may also want to consider incorporating a more structured interview process where all of the candidates are asked the same questions during the interview, and these questions are weighted and scored by multiple reviewers. These types of small changes in the hiring process can minimize the risk of unconscious bias and can have a positive impact on increasing real diversity in the workforce. How would you know? If it's unconscious or subconscious, as is more accurate, how would you know that it was eliminated? How can you tell for sure? Can you ever really know for sure? To ensure that diversity hiring is a success, well, how do you define success? Employers should do their best to have a hiring panel that is as diverse as possible, and that these individuals have varied backgrounds. No. Define diversity first. What defines someone as diverse versus someone else? What do you mean by diverse? How do you distinguish a diverse panel from a non-diverse panel? Then tell me again about prejudice and bias. By all means. And the fact that you bring up varied backgrounds as the secondary factor tells me a lot. This can help an employer avoid some of the common pitfalls associated with poorly implemented diversity hiring practices. I'm still trying to find out what the mechanisms are of a quality diversity hiring practice. If the goal is to, pad out your demographic balance to achieve a visible look of diversity for anyone who walks in the room, what are the mechanisms that achieve that? And if it is the look that is most important, as our author indicates here by listing off what are the priorities, how do you avoid prejudice and bias? I don't know. All right, suggestion number 2, I guess. Leverage technology and tools to minimize the human bias present in the hiring process. This is where we're going to get into Hive diversity. Aaron Stewart, co-founder and CVO of the hiring platform Job.com. If that wasn't one of the first .com names to be bought up years ago, I don't know what was. Shares that, quote, there are many tools on the market designed to help flatten the bias curve when hiring, unquote. What is the bias curve? Do you have a chart for that one? He goes on to explain that job writing software is designed to help users write a job description free from unconsciously biased language as much as possible. I'd love to see an example of unconsciously biased language. What does that mean? After importing a job description, a program usually highlights areas in need of improvement and offers alternative wording that is more inclusionary. Such as? Quote, another readily available tool is pro-diversity Boolean string search queries which are ideal for recruiters and hiring managers, recommends Stewart. What qualifies something as a pro-diversity Boolean string search? I know. I'm very picky in asking for definitions or examples of these terms and words they're throwing around, but they are important because otherwise I don't understand. These queries help to maximize the number of diverse candidates that appear in resume database search queries. What qualifies as a diverse candidate? What data points are you using as filtering mechanisms to achieve a diverse candidate pool? And then tell me again, well, not so much about unconscious bias, but systemic bias. Many search query systems preference workers whose backgrounds mimic those of people who are already hired by the company. Yeah, imagine that. If I'm running a construction company and my background in running the construction company is in construction, and I'm looking for people to work in my construction company, I know it is a serious crime to want to look for people to hire that have a background in construction. Quote, building in a framework that prioritizes differences in backgrounds but not a lack of ability can help correct this issue, emphasizes Stewart. How is it an issue? How is it an issue to look for people that have some experience in their backgrounds, nothing to do with their race, nothing to do with their gender, nothing to do with their orientation, but in their backgrounds that align with what the company is looking for because the company does a specific thing? I mean, why would a construction company, why would a construction company need a full-time dog trainer? It's a diverse background. It's definitely diverse compared to everybody else at the construction company. But what possible need would a construction company have for a professional dog trainer? Probably very little, if any at all. I don't understand this argumentation here. I've seen it several times before. We want diverse backgrounds, everything else. Yeah, sure, okay, but there has to be a common through line because you're a company that does a thing, right? You make a widget or you provide a service, and that service or that widget requires people behind it who know a little thing or two about the widget or that service. I mean, great. In addition to being a construction company type person, you also like to paint on the weekends. Great. Who cares? Okay. A third tool is recruiting platforms that allow searches of candidates based on sex and race. Okay, I'm going to be really curious to know where they go with this one. Let me start over with this. A third tool is recruiting platforms that allow searches of candidates based on sex and race. Quote, however, companies should be wary of using these platforms. The goal is not to tokenize new employees or hit a specific quota for representation. Yes, it is. Yes, it is. Let me scroll back up again real quick. Another readily available tool is pro-diversity Boolean string search queries. Okay, and these are ideal for recruiters and hiring managers. Okay, well, if you're not going to define what pro-diversity is, if you're not going to tell us what the factors are for defining someone as diverse versus someone else, but this is an ideal tool, how is this one something you have to be wary of? How is this doing anything differently than a Boolean search for specific attributes? I am genuinely confused. Okay, however, companies should be wary of using these platforms. The goal is not to tokenize new employees or hit a specific quota for representation. Yes, it is. It should be ingrained in the company culture. Okay, so you don't want to use a tool that searches for candidates based on sex and race, right? You want looking for people based on sex and race to be ingrained in the company culture? What? Quote, people want to and should be hired based on merit. No, they should. Then define diversity, okay? You need to define your terms because you make no sense. If it's based on merit, then race and sex and orientation matter not, as Yoda would say. People want to and should be hired based on merit. Incorporating diverse individuals. Okay. Am I the only one just having multiple mental syntax errors reading this person's sentence? One more time. People want to and should be hired based on merit. Incorporating diverse individuals should be a holistic process in hiring that carries throughout the entire organization and is designed to ensure all employees feel comfortable and supported. The use of platforms and all the strategies mentioned should be part of a larger strategy towards inclusion, where you are integrating biased and prejudiced hiring practices into your culture rather than using a third-party tool. Is that what I'm getting from this? That's what I'm getting from this. It's also completely countermanding itself. People want to and should be hired based on merit. That should be the end of the statement. That should be the end of the sentiment. What the hell is that anyway? But no, we have to like somehow confuse that with pro-diversity Boolean searches, but stay away from tools that filter based on race and sex. I mean, why would you even recommend, even a wary recommendation, this third tool, which blatantly tells you it's doing something illegal? Okay. I mean, if a company was going to pretend that they had no idea how the app achieved its ends or something, I guess that'd be one thing. But, okay. All right. Now we're getting into the meat of it. Now we're getting into our friends at Hive Diversity. Now, and actually this opening statement kind of leans towards my theory. Start before the hiring process begins. Dakota Eddy, partner and COO of Hive Diversity, a career development and recruiting platform, though I still have no idea how that platform develops anyone's career, advises that, quote, a diverse entry-level workforce can pave the way for companies to be more diverse at the highest levels. But diversity in isolation of equity and inclusion won't necessarily work. Okay. Before starting to build a diverse talent pool, companies should ensure employees feel included and respected regardless of their background, unquote. And what does your app do again to achieve this? Okay, and that was an unquote there. This can include physically making workplaces more inclusive, such as having gender-inclusive restrooms, well, hey, Ally McBeal, and spaces accommodating differently abled talent. Companies can also review their anti-discrimination policies and strengthen them by using third-party tools that discriminate on the basis of race, sex, and orientation. Yeah, okay. Or otherwise make sure such policies aren't merely lip service. Companies can also support building diverse candidate pools by ensuring their hiring and promotion processes are as equitable as possible. Gender-neutral job descriptions. Whoa. Okay, I love to see a traditional job description and then what a gender-neutral job description is, because usually I see, vice president of shipping. What like is it like, instead of saying something like I'm trying to think of like a gender unneutral job description. Usually I see things like candidate should be able to blah, blah, blah. I mean, maybe there are things out there that say like he should be able to blah, blah, or whatever, but still, whatever. And having metrics and goals to track progress that are just a few ways to help achieve diverse, equitable, and inclusive organizational change in advance of hiring changes. Babble. Absolute babble. And it says nothing. Gender neutral job descriptions and metrics. Metrics? Okay, well, if you have a goal for a diverse workforce, what does diverse mean? If it's not surface level stuff, if it's not race, if it's not gender, if it's not orientation, or other things that have nothing to do with merit, if it's not those things, why bring them up? Why even list the possible tool that searches on the basis of race and sex? If you are just talking about merit, and you're not talking about discriminating on the basis of things that are illegal to discriminate on the basis of in hiring, why bring them up? Next, use training to engage a truly diverse talent pool that's primed to work in and support an inclusive work environment. What does diverse mean? The founder and CEO of Hive Diversity, Byron Slosar, shared that, quote, companies will always have an evolving range of needs and priorities around representation, and the key is investing in and prioritizing the next generation of talent, unquote. Investing in and prioritizing the next generation of talent. On the basis of what attributes? In order to achieve diversity. You tell me. To support this, Hive Diversity ensures that before applying to a position, every candidate must show a demonstrated commitment to the hiring process by completing career-focused professional and DE&I training. Oh, how? What does Hive Diversity provide insofar as training? Through an app. How does someone show their commitment through an app to career-focused professional and diversity, equity, and inclusion training? Honestly, if I had access to this, and I don't, I would love to actually go through one of their training sessions. I would actually like to go through one of their app's training regimens to find out how it is I can prove to a potential employer that I understand Hive Diversity's version of focused professional DE&I training. And is Hive Diversity's version of this training, is that interchangeable with all these companies? Do all these companies operate on the same level as the training provided by Hive Diversity? Is that what leads to a diverse workforce, that I've got a certificate, an electronic certificate of achievement? Because that doesn't sound like what diversity is at the end of this process. Eddie explained that the training they provide for candidates includes definitions, a brief history of DE&I, and introductions to topics such as allyship and the business case for diversity. Yeah, allyship is usually being told to look at people of a different type as someone who needs help. Someone who is inherently needing of help. To distinguish people as weaker than you, or inherently flawed, or inherently disadvantaged. That's what allyship usually promotes. And the business case for diversity? I have yet to see an actual study that says because we put more people of this type into our company, we had a growth. We had a profit. For no other reason than our demographics went from this percentage difference to this percentage difference. You know, setting aside talent, setting aside merit, setting aside anything else, simply on the basis of our demographic spread, now we're a better company. We're a more profitable company because of it, where that is actually the cause of any profit gain. I have yet to see a study that is willing to make that leap of logic. But anyway, Quote, we also address how diversity and inclusion show up in the workplace, and candidates get a taste of what they might do to prepare for and engage with DE&I after the hiring process, unquote. Sounds more and more like a cult as we go along. Learning about diversity, equity, and inclusion also helps candidates to understand the context of their own backgrounds. What? Learning about diversity, equity, and inclusion also helps candidates to understand the context of their own backgrounds. Eddie emphasized that, quote, the DE&I training signals to every student, recent graduate, and partner that not only do we know about diversity and inclusion, but we want our community to understand these concepts as they start or continue to engage with each other and with employers around them, unquote. I don't even understand what you're talking about. How does learning diversity, equity, and inclusion teach me about the context of my own background? And what is a background? They throw out these words like I'm supposed to know what they mean. What equates to a diverse candidate? What is a background versus a work experience? Or is it work experience? The context of my own background? Context in the frame of what? What? And this was the author here. This was not Eddie, or unless the author was paraphrasing. So I have no idea. Examine the application process for unintended bias. How do you detect unintended bias if you're coming at it from I can only guess. In a recent report, there's a hyperlink with a bolded T, okay? Researchers at University of Pennsylvania showed how despite stated commitments to diverse hiring and attempts to remove bias from hiring practices, companies can still fail at meeting their own diversity goalposts. Yeah, because they probably aren't actually trying to hire people on the basis of demographics. Because if they're caught doing that, they've broken the law. The researchers developed a tool that matched on-campus recruiters with hypothetical resumes. Hypothetical resumes. This is your study. Okay. Thank you, Matt Barnes. So, in other words, if you don't believe you're oppressed, we will help you see you are. That whole how to put your own background into context. I don't know what that means. I have no idea what that means. If my background is X, then I need to put it in the context of what? Based on the lens of DE&I? That is so bizarre sounding to me. Like Hive diversity is going to tell me how my background fits into a larger context of something. Sounds kind of creepy. Okay, again, the researchers developed a tool that matched on-campus recruiters with hypothetical resumes featuring randomized identifying characteristics that would denote a name and gender. Okay. The study found that firms hiring in STEM fields rated minority and female candidates significantly lower than white males. For example, to get the same rating as a white male with a 3.75 GPA, a minority or female candidate needed a 4.0. The study checked for a number of unconscious biases and found that these biases algorithmically and organically pull the wrong candidates in their recruiting funnel in a variety of ways. The wrong candidates. The wrong candidates. So the correct candidates are anything other than white males. Hypothetical resumes featuring randomized identifying characteristics that would denote a name and gender. I'm very curious now about this report. I will look at that afterwards. Slosar explains, quote, personalized and innovative technology can remove many inefficiencies and potential inequities related to the career development and recruitment process for hiring managers, unquote. An example of how Hive Diversity does this is through their resume build. It's designed to not only create a perfectly formatted resume for the candidate, which is something that has been on the market for years now, but also removes some of the potential implicit or hidden bias related to what a resume looks like. Wait, potential bias as imprinted by the candidate? What? Quote, we've alleviated some of the potential bias associated with relying only on university-based resources and or personal networks by creating a virtual career development and recruitment experience that creates meaningful engagement opportunities between candidates and employers, unquote, highlights Slosar. Look, let's not pretend anything here. Hive Diversity is funneling people to specific clients. They're funneling people to clients that pay Hive Diversity for their services. Okay? They're not helping you make a resume for the outside world. They're helping you fill out a form that is aligned with their client's requirements. This is so bizarre. A 2016 research report, Whitened Resumes, Race and Self-Presentation in the Labor Market. Tell me about bias again? Exposed one of the most glaring issues inherent to the hiring process. The individual biases, unconscious or not, of the recruiters and hiring managers. When identical resumes were placed before hirers, those with white names received a 150% increase in callbacks over resumes with black or ethnic names. Yeah, I've heard about this report many times. I've also heard many people say it's poorly done. Quote, while technology can't address all of the pervasive issues around race, bias, and systemic discrimination. You mean systemic discrimination like a tool that filters candidates on the basis of race or gender? That kind of systemic discrimination? Or a pro-diversity Boolean search? That kind of systemic discrimination? Or the wrong candidates were selected when the only differential is their skin color and gender? That kind of systemic discrimination? It can help control some of its influence, highlights Stewart. To support this, Job.com is introducing an anonymous application process that uses a blockchain technology stack to verify the validity of a candidate and their credentials. Verify the validity of a candidate and their credentials. And then anonymizes their resume for use in the job application and hiring process. The hirer won't know the demographics of the individual they've selected, only that their merits fit the job in question and that blockchain has been used to validate those merits. Blockchain has been used to validate those merits. Okay, I'll be the first to admit, I don't understand everything about how blockchain works. How does blockchain validate the merit of my job experience? Or my merits in general. What does that mean? Quote, Job.com believes that by increasing the funnel of diverse candidates, define diverse, making it through to interview, you increase the likelihood that you'll create a more diverse workforce, unquote. Yes. If Hive Diversity recommends to its client companies people on the basis of specific attributes, then yes, their funnel from the talent pool will be very diverse. If diverse is what I think it is, though they never define it in this article. Thank you, the gay rascal, skin color to employer pipeline. Yeah, exactly. Okay, what are the biggest errors companies make in their attempts to address diversity in their hiring process? I'm still wanting to know, what are their successful mechanisms? I'm not looking for the errors. I can think of all the errors in the world. I'm wondering what they do that actually achieves the goals that they want. What are the mechanisms that companies employ to result in a diverse workforce? If diverse is defined as walking into a room and looking at the skin colors and genders of everyone sitting there and deciding whether or not it's diverse, what does an anonymous resume process have to do with anything? What does taking race and gender, etc., out of the equation have to do with anything? That's not the goal. The goal is not a workforce based on merit. Diversity is not about merit. Number one, don't overlook systemic issues within the hiring process. DE&I is a systemic process. There is a system to achieving the goals of a DE&I initiative. It is a system. As such, it has issues. Quote, the commitment to diversity must show through the full cycle of the hiring process with a diverse team of hirers, recruiters, and decision makers on the recruiting end, and a strong internal network that ensures that all employees, especially those with diverse backgrounds, feel heard, supported, and valued by the organization, emphasizes Stewart. Constantly contradicting themselves over and over and over again. What is actually valued here? If you're going to employ a process that takes out all the elements of a person's physical makeup and whittle it only down to merit and verifiable work experience and things like that, great, fine, perfectly fine. How does that get you to where you want to go by the definitions of diversity? Diverse backgrounds? What is a diverse background compared to a regular background? I don't know what the contrast is. Ensuring that a variety of employees can see themselves represented in varied roles in the organization helps make the workplace feel more equitable and inspires people to do their best work, which can only benefit the company and help to attract even more qualified top-tier candidates. If it's not about anything other than merit, what matters the aesthetics? See themselves represented. You know, no matter where I go, no matter what I do, I don't see myself represented anywhere because I'm the only me that I know of. I represent myself. I don't represent anybody else unless I'm elected to do so. Number two, don't assume a person is diverse. Okay, well, define it. Define it. What does that mean? Quote, a person is not diverse. The makeup of the workforce can be diverse, calls out Eddie. No. We've just been told that there are the right candidates to hire and the wrong candidates to hire. We've been told that a person is diverse with a diverse background, and that is a goal. So if there is a diverse background, there must be something in contrast that is not a diverse background. So a person must be diverse. A person must be able to be defined as diverse or not. Otherwise, it makes no sense to be qualifying everything as a diverse talent pool. Quote, each candidate is part of and contributes to a diverse community. In various ways, individuals contribute to what makes their workplace different by bringing a diverse range of experiences from their identity, background, beliefs, and thoughts, unquote. Horse hockey. Horse hockey. I do not believe you for a second when you say that that is what diversity is defined as. Not at all. Everything above in this article has shown me that that is not the case. You know, between Boolean searches for pro-diversity elements, apps that distinguish on the basis of sex and race, okay, wrong candidates, diverse backgrounds, backgrounds in context. No. Oh, and also see themselves represented. No, I don't buy it. 3, don't treat DE&I as a box that needs to be checked. What? Really? Why shouldn't I? Everything you're telling me is that that's exactly what it is. You just told us diversity goalposts. It is a checkbox. It is a quota. Sane or Sane, I don't know how to say it, I apologize, highlights that, quote, wanting to create a more inclusive workforce and hire diverse candidates is a great goal. But when done improperly, there can be a risk of reverse discrimination. Isn't reverse discrimination just inclusion? I hate to tell you this. There's no such thing as reverse racism. There's no such thing as reverse discrimination. There's just racism. There's just discrimination. Anyway, back to the author. For example, what is this shirt is terrifying me. Every time this thing pops up, I'm like, go away. For example, establishing strict quotas or refusing to hire a candidate because they are white can open up an employer to a discrimination lawsuit in the same way that refusing to hire a candidate because they are black. Yeah. The same way, because you're discriminating on the basis of race. It's not reverse discrimination. It's discrimination. What do you... Anti-discrimination laws prohibit employers from making hiring decisions based on race, sex, or other protected characteristics. Yes, you're right. You're right. Now, go up in your own article and tell me about the tools recommended by your experts in seeking diverse candidates. You know, the pro-diversity Boolean searches, the apps that distinguish people on the basis of race or sex, the part where people need to see themselves represented. Do you not see the disconnect here? Quote, separate and apart from the liability issue, poorly constructed diversity initiatives can have a negative impact on employee morale, unquote. Yeah. Like people wondering, is this person only here because they possess attribute X? If the stated company goal is to achieve, balance or equilibrium in certain demographics by a certain date, and then suddenly you have an influx of people of that specific demographic, is it not natural to wonder if if not the only reason that person has the job that they do is that they fill out a specific demographic goalpost as stated above? A mistake employers make when attempting to hire a diverse workforce is treating it as a box that needs to be checked and then abandoning the goal altogether. Quote, no diverse candidate wants to feel like they are the token hire. The commitment to diversity has to be all-encompassing. And there needs to be a hyphen there in all-encompassing. Wait, no diverse candidate. A person is not diverse. No diverse candidate. Contradicting ourselves. I understand that these quotes here are from two different people. I mean, this is from Dakota Eddy from Hive Diversity, and this is the other lady from a different company. I forget off the top of my head. Either way, you would think that our reporter, at all curious about this, might point out these inconsistencies in philosophy. You would think. And yet, as an example, If Hive Diversity is advertising themselves as an all-in-one tool and solution for giving companies what they need when it comes to diverse candidates and DE&I training, and yet there is this distinct gulf of philosophy between two major advisors, shouldn't that be a question to be asked? Moving on. Number 4, don't assume this is solely a recruiting or C-suite responsibility. Quote, quote, demand change in the process, whether you are a hiring manager or an employee, recommends Stewart. If you are a hiring manager or recruiter, be reflective of your attitude to applicants from diverse backgrounds. What is a diverse background? What does that mean? We've all been exposed to and unconsciously absorbed many of the biases inherent in our societies. Oh, we're mind readers now, are we? Oh, okay. Everybody is tainted. Everybody is suspect. Any decision you make has to be questioned and interrogated and scrutinized. We've all been exposed to and unconsciously absorbed many of the biases inherent in our societies. Yeah, you know, I have absorbed many of the biases in my society, like the bias against discriminating people on the basis of their race, gender, orientation for job opportunities. Yeah, I'll tell you what, that is ingrained in me. Strange that it's not so in the people that I'm looking at here. Though we've made great strides towards equality, that unconscious bias lives within us and does inform our decision-making. Says you. Quote, we have to remain vigilant, raise our consciousness, be open to learning, and use technology to help make up for our blind spots in the pursuit of a truly diverse workforce. Unquote. I'm assuming that is a quote attributed to Stewart, because it doesn't tell me otherwise. Follow me on Twitter. I might have some questions for our author. I may have some questions for our author after this. I may. But anyway, let's just a brief closure here. Look at this study that they've cited regarding the resumes. Incentivized resume rating, eliciting employer preferences without deception. I mean, except the deception, these are all fake resumes. Abstract. We introduce a new experimental paradigm to evaluate employer preferences called incentivized resume rating, or IRR. Employers evaluate resumes they know to be hypothetical. They know to be hypothetical, okay, in order to be matched with real job seekers, preserving incentives while avoiding the deception necessary in audit studies. We deploy IRR with employers recruiting college seniors from a prestigious school, randomizing human capital characteristics and demographics of hypothetical candidates. We measure both employer preferences for candidates and employer beliefs about the likelihood that candidates will accept job offers, avoiding a typical confound in audit studies. Okay. We discuss the costs, benefits, and future applications of this new methodology. Okay, so it's a new methodology. Never been done before. So it has no comparison. It has no rigor. All right. And this is what they set their deal on. Can I actually look at these things? I don't know. Oh, it's a download. Okay. Yeah, obviously. Okay. Well, anyway, I'm always wary when somebody cites a very specific study, a single study. I'm also now wary of something where this is a process that's never been tried before. New methodology. Okay. Anyway, there you have it, folks. Another dive into Hive diversity and the various mire that is diversity recruiting. This raises a lot more questions in my mind than it has answers, as every other previous look at this has. I may pose a couple of questions to the author of that Forbes article to see what her thoughts are on the differing views of these diversity experts. Because it's difficult to say what they're talking about when they don't define their terms, and the various philosophies on what defines a diverse candidate is so miles apart between the experts. But I'll give a couple of couple minutes here for any questions or comments you guys may have. If you've said anything in the chat previous that I should be aware of, please just repeat it now. I was very focused on reading the articles as clearly and concisely as I can. And then we'll wrap this up for the day. Dr. Keeve has put my Twitter up on the chat. Thank you, Dr. Keeve. Appreciate it. Mr. E, how does a hive have diversity? Seems like it would be the antithesis of diversity to me. There's a lot of inherent contradictions of logic and definition and reason in these things. And I think we've seen it on display here in its full glory, especially in that Forbes article, where it rightly warns everyone that hiring people on the basis of these specific attributes is indeed illegal. And yet above that, you have experts recommending tools that do that very thing for you. Using an algorithm or an app or anything else to filter out your hiring candidates on the basis of attributes that have no determination of merit doesn't alleviate you of liability and discrimination, especially if it's to discriminate towards the quote-unquote right candidates. The wrong candidates. You know why some people, and I've heard this from some actual hiring people in companies, you know why some people don't hire the person with the 4.0 GPA or whatever? Because that person can demand a higher salary, that person might be overqualified, and on and on and on. You want to bring in somebody that has some room to learn, etc. Someone who's not going to be hired away right away, whose opportunities may be limited so you can have retention. There's a whole bunch of considerations that go on there. You know? So, anyway, let's see. Grand Marquis, how many lights are there? Are 4 lights! Or whatever it was. Let's see. IRR, incredibly racist rating. Yeah. I mean, I don't know how else to look at some of this stuff or their justification for it. That article alone, I mean, that article is actually, I'll bring it back real quick just for display purposes. I actually appreciate this article a lot. I really do. And all these stupid ads, go away. Go away. Go away. Stop. God, I hate. Oh, man, I tell you what. Bill Hicks, the comedian, did a rant on marketing and advertising one time, and I don't disagree with him sometimes. I actually really appreciate this article. And if I decide to contact the author, I will let her know that. Because it really does spell out the inherent contradictions and flaws in the whole DE&I process and philosophy, you know. And, you know, for better or worse, the author not taking any stance one way or the other on it and just presenting what the experts are saying really does do a good portrait of the inherent problems with this stuff. But it also boggles me that with it so blatantly flawed in its thinking, with it promoting things that are so blatantly legally suspect at best, that not more is said about that. Mystery Scribelet, I'm going to create my own new buzzword, buzz phrase, Hiversity. Yeah, I was really surprised that they had such a sort of generic company name, you know, Hive Diversity. I mean, I guess it's very explicit in what they're trying to do. They still don't have a Twitter account. I would love to follow them on Twitter. I really would. They have an Instagram account. They have Instagram and LinkedIn. And Instagram, of course, is just photos, and it's just whatever, fluff art pieces. But let's see. Well, anyway, I think that's about all I have for today, guys. I will keep my eyes open. I'm not going to do a Hive diversity stream every week unless something really amazing happens, but I'm going to keep an eye on their website for any new articles or publications that come out regarding them. And if they do end up getting a Twitter account at some point, I will certainly follow them there. There is a Twitter account that is just called Hive Diversity, but it's like never been used by anybody and it's just sitting there. So maybe that's why they haven't gotten a Twitter account, because it's been taken. But, Hive app or Hive app official or something. I mean, you can make a Twitter account for anything. But let's see. Dr. Keefe, Scribelight, would you like me to show your Twitter and YouTube channel on all of your streams? Well, conceivably, Dr. Keefe, if they're watching one of my streams, they already are aware of my YouTube channel. So, I mean, it might be over. I wouldn't argue against it, but it might be a little redundant. But my Twitter account, certainly. And you can find all of that information in in the description below. But with that, everyone, and again, thank you, Dr. Keefe. What was I going to say? Oh, yeah. If you'd like to hear more from me or Satsu 2 Cents, you can find both of us tomorrow night, Monday night, on Satsu 2 Cents' channel at 6 p.m. Pacific, 9 p.m. Eastern for The Lords of the Night, where we will talk about the news of the day, news stories you submit, what we've been up to on the internet, and then your questions and comments. Everyone, thank you so much for joining me this morning. I hope you found this informative. I know I did to a certain extent. I'll be following up. And if anything interesting happens in the ensuing days, or if I have any correspondence with the author, I will, some way, shape, or form, give an update at some point. But be sure to follow me on Twitter otherwise. And with that, everyone, I hope you all have a good rest of your Sunday. Thank you so much for joining me. Moderators, thank you for keeping an eye on things. Even though everyone is so well behaved, there's not much for you to do. Everyone who donated, thank you so much for your generosity. I hope everyone has a good rest of your weekend. I hope you're all safe and well. And if you're not well, please get well soon, and I'll see you on the next one. Take care. Bye-bye.